Something about this painting feels wrong. The skin is too pale, the forehead too bare, and then your eye lands on something you cannot look away from. A breast, perfectly round, fully exposed, offered to no one in particular. If you saw this image without knowing what it was, you might think it was generated by a machine, or pulled from a dream that hasn't quite ended. It was not. It was painted in 1452 by a French artist named Jean Fouquet, and it has been making people deeply uncomfortable ever since. Not because it is ugly, but because it is beautiful in a way that feels like it is breaking a rule you cannot quite name. This is one of the most scandalous religious paintings ever placed inside a church, and the scandal has nothing to do with technique. Jean Fouquet had just come back from Italy when he painted this. What he found there changed everything. The Renaissance was reshaping how artists understood the human body, light, space, and proportion. Fouquet absorbed it and brought it north, combining it with the meticulous detail of Flemish painting. The result was something that felt ahead of its time, almost uncomfortably so. This painting is the clearest proof of that. 9 angels crowd the scene in red and blue. The Virgin sits at the center, her body rendered with a precision that feels clinical rather than devotional. And the Christ child on her lap does something unusual. Instead of nursing, he turns away and points toward something outside the frame. That gesture is not accidental. It is a clue, and to follow it, you need to understand who paid for this painting and why. The man who commissioned this work was Étienne Chevalier. He was the treasurer to King Charles VII of France, not a nobleman by birth, but a man who had built his position through intelligence, loyalty, and proximity to power. Close enough to the king that he was trusted with executing the royal will after death. He ordered this diptych, a 2-panel painting for the Church of Notre Dame in Melun, to be placed above the tomb of his late wife. In the left panel, Chevalier kneels in prayer. He is dressed in deep red, a color that in the 15th century said everything about status without needing words. His patron saint, Stephen, stands beside him with one hand on his shoulder. The other hand holds a stone stained with blood. Stephen was the first Christian martyr. He was killed by stoning, and if you look closely enough at his head, you can still see the wound. Both men face the same direction, toward the right panel, toward her. In the right panel, Mary sits on a golden throne surrounded by angels, whose red and blue robes mirror the colors of the French royal house. Her crown is elaborate, her skin is white to the point of translucence, and her robe is open. The breast that caused 5 centuries of controversy is not offered in the act of feeding. The child on her lap has turned away from it entirely. It is simply there, present, deliberate, impossible to explain away as incidental. The atmosphere of the panel is difficult to describe precisely. It does not feel like a church painting. It feels like something from a court that has decided its own rules no longer apply to it. Everything is rendered with extraordinary care, and yet nothing feels quite sacred. There is a reason for that unease, and it has a name. Her name was Agnès Sorel. She was the mistress of King Charles VII, officially recognized, publicly known, politically significant. Historians consider her the first woman to hold that position with formal acknowledgement in French history. She was described by her contemporaries as the most beautiful woman in the kingdom, but her influence went well beyond her appearance. She pushed the king toward action when he had retreated into passivity. She shaped policy through proximity, and she made powerful enemies because of it. She died in 1450, 2 years before this painting was completed. Pregnant, traveling in winter, she never reached her destination. Fouquet painted her from memory or from portraits that no longer exist. The shaved forehead, the exposed neckline, the particular way her body is presented. These were details her contemporaries would have recognized immediately. The Archbishop of Reims had already complained publicly about the fashions she introduced at court, fashions that, in his words, left women indecently exposed. And here she is, enthroned, crowned, holding the Son of God. What Fouquet has done here is not subtle. He has taken the king's mistress and placed her at the center of a devotional image intended for a church. Not metaphorically, not through symbol or suggestion, literally, with enough realism that no one at court could have missed who they were looking at. The tradition he is drawing from is the Virgo lactans, the nursing Madonna, one of the most established formats in medieval religious art. In those earlier works, the exposed breast is always purposeful. It is the act of nourishment, of care, of the divine made physical through motherhood. Here that meaning has been removed. The child looks away. What remains is the body alone, form without function, beauty without the justification devotion would normally provide. The historian Johann Huizinga described this as a symptom of late medieval spiritual decline, an image that had crossed from the sacred into something closer to display. He was not wrong, but he may have missed the point, because there is a reading of this painting that goes beyond scandal. Étienne Chevalier was not a reckless man. He had built his entire career on knowing exactly how close to the line he could stand without crossing it. A devotional image placed above his wife's tomb, commissioned at great expense, was not the work of someone acting carelessly. Consider what the composition actually shows. In the left panel, his patron saint presents him before the Virgin. In the right panel, the Christ child turns away from the breast and points directly toward where Chevalier would have knelt. Toward the viewer, toward the man who paid for all of this. The painting is not about Mary. It was never entirely about Mary. It is about a man who wanted to be seen, remembered, and perhaps forgiven, and who found a way to make a king's mistress intercede on his behalf for eternity. Fouquet died without recognition. He was rediscovered centuries later and is now considered one of the founding figures of French Renaissance painting. And this work, after more than 500 years, still has not been fully explained, which may be exactly what both men intended.